In the quiet moments of my life, I was always told I was destined for greatness, to lead and to be looked up to. But beneath that heavy crown of expectations, I was a girl lost in the shadows of my own destiny. The type for reading my life had always been planned for me. From the moment I was born, my parents drilled into me how important I would be someday. I was destined to be a leader. People would look up to me, the Luna. They wanted me to become Gabriel's Luna. I love Gabriel. Well, I should say I love Gabriel. My feelings for him hadn't changed over the past few years. For so many years, I tried to make him notice me. I tried to make him love me as I loved him. Even when we dated, I tried as hard as I could. I made myself available all of the time. I overworked myself. I helped everyone become the person they needed me to be. It was exhausting, but I tried. I pushed and pushed and pushed. Even after my parents died, when they had no idea if I failed or not. They'd be disappointed in me if I didn't. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They claimed I was destined to be a Luna. Gabriel never saw me though. He never really wanted me. Every time I stared into his hypnotic grey eyes, I didn't see the love I was desperate to receive. I wasn't his Luna, and I never would be. It didn't stop me. I was persistent, determined, motivated. The pack saw me as the closest thing to a Luna, and for a while, that was enough. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I was breaking. I was losing who I was. Eden was merely a name fitted to me. I was everybody. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Helper, lover but never a person, never Eden. No matter how hard I tried, I was never good enough for him. I was never the person he wanted or needed. We were two jigsaw pieces that didn't fit together. Never a match. I cried for days when Gabriel sent me to Louisiana. I didn't know who I was without him back. How could I function as a person when I was not one anymore? The time I spent there was hell. I thought about him constantly. I wondered if he missed me. We messaged every once in a while, but they were short and brief. He claimed we were over, but I never accepted it. I was the only person he'd ever date. He never wanted anyone else. I was the closest person to him, even closer than Blade. But when I came back, things changed. He was different. And she was there, the most gorgeous woman ever to exist. An angel, goddess. She was too beautiful to be real. The aura around her pulled you in and made you trust her. The pack was suspicious of her, but even they couldn't hold back for long. The way he looked at her, my Gabriel, made my blood boil. My heart ache. How could he find this amazing in every way specimen? She didn't know him as I knew him. I was angry. As time went on, I watched myself be completely disregarded. I was nothing to him. I'd never be the Lunana. When I found out they were mate, that was it. I'd officially lost him and myself. Gabriel was my lifeline. The man I needed to keep me from being dragged to the bottom of the ocean. Without him, I couldn't function. One night, I drunkenly made a mistake and kissed her handsome brother. When I did, for a flicker of a second, my problems slipped away. But I was drunk and foolish. He probably thought I was some desperate, pathetic idiot. I had kissed him after I found out her true identity. I was even more jealous of how perfect she was. She was everything I wasn't. She was strong. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Intelligent beyond any of our years, compassionate, selfless, and brave. She wanted to leave the life she could have with Gabriel to protect him and his pack. In her alluring jade orbs, I could see the willingness to put her life on the line for everyone here. I wasn't even like that. That was why she was the Luna and I wasn't. I helped in every way I could, but I wasn't brave enough to make the ultimate sacrifice. I wasn't smart enough to make the right choices. Gabriel and Liberty were yin and yang. They argued and went head to head with each other constantly, but they balanced each other. They challenged each other and enabled progression. I'd always succumb to his every word. I'd never fight back, afraid of the consequences. It pained me to be able to admit it, even when I should have given up. I couldn't admit I had lost Gabriel. When I kissed him, it was pure bliss. My whole world felt right. But he jerked me away and glared at me with so much animosity. I didn't see the kid I grew up with, the man I loved. I saw a stranger who didn't want me. That was when I knew it was over. The only thing I could do now was let the sea drown me. A gentle, kind voice called from the other side of the bathroom. Ignoring it, I gripped the edge of the bathtub and let my body sink into the warm water. Everything around me stilled and my thoughts were peaceful for once. If this was how everything would end, then I'd happily take it. No Gabriel, no liberty, no heartache, just quietness. Suddenly, arms wrapped under my armpits and heaved me out of the bath. Gasping for air, I spluttered pathetically on the floor. Coughing. What were you thinking? Sabrina shrieked, a tone full of alarm. She crouched beside me and cried. Why would you do that? Why, you can't give up that easily. I flickered my dull and lifeless orbs up to her. Because I have nothing left. He doesn't want me. He hates me. I'm a nuisance. Sabrina shook her head ferociously. That's not true. I wish you saw yourself in a different light. You're incredible. Perfect in every way. I'm not. I argued. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My one purpose in life is gone. I was supposed to be the Luna, but she's it. That title was never meant for me. Happiness isn't meant for me. Sabrina wrapped her strong arms around me. By this point, my whole body was shivering. Eden, you can't give up. Your parents did the wrong thing. They filled you with false promises and lies. You might not be the Luna and he might not love you, but you still have so much. What about your mate? What about me? Blade. I bowed my head in shame. Sabrina had always been good to me. She cared for me no matter what, never judging me. I'm not perfect. Sabrina, my very existence will make my parents disappointed. Sabrina placed her chin on my wet, dripping hair and tightened her hold on me. It felt so good to have her holding me, protecting me from all of the pain. Nobody is perfect, she retorted, her voice a near whisper. Liberty is. I countered, my jaw ticking. She was so good, so pure. Oh, Eden, Sabrina sighed, shaking her head. You silly, blind fool. Nobody, not even Liberty, is perfect. Nobody ever will be perfect. But your parents were far from perfect. Eden, she interrupted me. They manipulated and lied to you. Does that sound like perfect people? No, it didn't. Eden, what they did to you, what they made you think was wrong, she stated, firmly. I lifted my eyes up to hers, gripping onto her wrist. They made you lose who you were. I had nothing to say to her. She was right. Sabrina shifted her hands so that they were cupping my cheeks. Delicately, I gazed at her pretty but not flawless face. She wasn't perfect. Neither was I. Maybe Liberty wasn't either. Eden, me and Liberty worked till she started, but I immediately cut her off when I heard her name. No, absolutely not. You didn't even hear me. She sighed, pinching her plump lips together. I don't want to hear anything, she said. She obviously wants me gone. She probably loathes my entire being. I growled, my wolf trotting in my head, ready to fight with me. Eden, I know you don't want to believe this, but she actually wants to help you. She's worried about you. Sabrina informed me. Hesitantly, I didn't hear a tinge of deceit in her voice, but that didn't mean I believed her. Liberty doesn't care about me. I fought back. She does. You're a member of her pack. She's worried about your well-being, she yelled, breathing heavily. I froze and stared at Sabrina with wide eyes. Sabrina had never lashed out like that before. She barely lost her cool. Startled, my mouth open and closed like a clueless goldfish. Listen, we talked about how we could help you. You've heard of Knight's medical retreat. dragging a hand through her dark locks. I could only nod my head. Well, we're going to send you there. You'd be with professionals who'd know how to help you. You wouldn't even need to worry about Delta, Moon. We really think this is the right move for you. My eyes trailed to the cold floor. I probably looked like a mess. My clothes were plastered to my body, my eyes were red and my hair was tangled. What had I become? I didn't know who I was anymore. I strived so young Gabriel, hoping he would give me the love I wanted. I couldn't even love myself. The people around me were concerned. I had made them stressed. I was spiraling out of control. I needed help. Okay. I relented, my voice quiet and fearful. I'll go. 2 days later, I had packed a suitcase full of essential items. Sabrina offered to drive me, wanting to be with me for as long as possible. Dressed in a plain white dress, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. I didn't look healthy or happy, but I definitely looked better. Hope would do that to you, I guess. Sucking in a breath, I said goodbye to my room and ventured down the stairs. Standing by the front door were Liberty and Gabriel. My heart seized at the sight of him. He looked handsome as hell. All of my feelings for him rattled inside of me. His face was emotional as like a block of wood. However, told a different story. There was a flicker of warmth in them that made my day. Liberty smiled at me softly, albeit awkwardly. Knowing that she was determined to help me made me less hateful towards her. None of this was her fault. I nodded at her gratefully, finding it difficult to smile. Maybe one day I'd be able to thank her audibly and smile at her. Just not today. Walking out of the pack house for the last time in a while, I stalked down the steps and toward Sabrina's green Jeep. Hey Eden, she greeted me as I hopped into the car. The sun was shining brightly today. It was a beautiful day. You ready? I glanced back at the pack house and around the grounds. I was sad I'd be leaving, but knowing it wasn't the last time was enough to keep me going. It was time I found out who I really was. Yes, 35 tough times the days rolled into one. I woke up and did the same routine over and over again. Wake up next to Gabriel. I had essentially moved into his room, eat breakfast. Train. Spend time with my brothers and Gabriel. Train some more. And sleep. It was dull and frustrating. My head felt like it was going to explode with the amount of information arguments I had suffered through. Declan had opened a portal back home and retrieved the book he had read so long ago. He discovered the man who betrayed the wolves was called Egan. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing Clichet's enthusiasm. I thought nothing of the name, but after some time thinking, there was something oddly familiar about it. Once more, one day, Declan had accidentally spilled water on one of the blank pages of the book and found missing text. Sir Egan, before he had brutally and coldly murdered the wolves, had lived in our well. He wasn't a fae. He was a werewolf and was close to the wolves. He had kidnapped a few innocent faes and brought them back to the human realm. Disgustingly, he had tortured them, attempting to take their powers. It appeared he was a man who strived for power and didn't care how he got it. Whilst visiting my realm, Declan had asked father questions. It was an awkward task since our parents and Morpheus were dealing with a potential war with the Dark Fae. Our father revealed he had once overheard his parents talking about what had happened. He was a little child at the time and thought nothing of it. It was only after Mother used a memory charm to sift through his memories that she discovered Egan had sought help from a few disgraced witches. They tried to perform a spell to take Fae's immortality. The plan failed. Thankfully, our grandfather was informed of what was happening when Claudia materialized, claiming to have heard information about the rogue witches. Outraged by the betrayal, our grandfather stopped the spell from ever happening. He attempted to kill Egan but failed. Egan had vanished, never to be heard or seen again. That was when our grandfather created the treaty, hiding our world from the supernaturals. He had Claudia create a spell on the rest of the supernaturals so that they would forget our existence. Everything about us was erased. The story was chilling, to say the least. Grandfather protected us, I understood that, but I still couldn't get over how he let the werewolves die. He was angry at one of them for trying to kill Fi and take their power. But Egan was one man and the king and queen of wolves meant no harm. They had suffered through so much and deserved to die. To add to all of this worry and stress, Prince Aziel was working with Delta, Moon. He knew I was here and was latching onto Delta, Moon's hatred for Red Knight, to obliterate them. After all of these revelations, I trained harder than ever. My brothers helped me practice my powers. Gabriel and I fought together, correcting each other in combat. My relationship with Gabriel was steady at times but still fragile. We barely had any time alone except for at night. But we were exhausted by then. I loathed Aziel more than anything for making my relationship with Gabriel like this. The chances of us winning were not good with Prince Aziel and his close warriors on his side. I still hadn't seen my family either. As I said, Morpheus and my parents were too busy to visit. It would be too dangerous too. Atlas and Kael were probably with the royal army, preparing them in case we needed them. Then again, if they interfered, there would definitely be a war against the light and dark Fi. I knew my parents wanted to avoid that at all costs. I didn't blame them. Millions of innocent Fi would be killed. Nobody wanted that. It had been 3 weeks since Eden left too. We were all on edge, waiting for a surprise attack. Delta, Moon could attack at any moment. Our plan was to attack first, but only when we were strong enough. Jacob predicted the warriors of Red Knight would be ready in about a week. It wasn't ideal, but it was the best we could do. On edge, as usual, I sat at the dinner table with Gabriel, Blade, and Sabrina. My brothers were off training a group of 16-year-olds. They were not allowed to fight, but they were trained to defend. They would be staying with the elderly and younger children far away from the pack house. I slurped my soup, drifting my eyes along everyone on the table. Everything looked so anxious and tired. Nobody could remember the last time they had a good night's rest. Gabriel, I called his name. He was busy scanning a letter a neighboring pack had sent. Gabriel had sent out many emails, letters, and phone calls to packs he was allied with, hoping then a hand. They had all declined to help so far. This one would be no different. Gabriel, I called his name again, catching the attention of Blade, Gomez, and finally, Gabriel. His grey orbs locked onto mine, dimming. I knew what that meant. My heart deflated. No. He shook his head. The pack in stow won't help us. He scrunched up the letter angrily, clenching his jaw. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They are all cowards. It's just politics. Gabriel, you know that. They pick a side and that's it, they're fucked. Blade jumped in. Calmly. I threw him a thankful look. He was a good beta. I may have hated him at first, but now, he was starting to grow on me. You'd think they'd help. They probably hate Delta, Moon as much as us. He countered, referring to the many lives lost because of Delta, Moon. I don't think they can interfere. A member of the royal family is there. Blade justified, making me furrow my eyebrows. Wait, what? Have you heard of Leah Ward? Blade dragged his hazel eyes to me. I nodded my head. She was the only daughter of the former king and queen of wolves. She lives in Stowe. She moved there after her mate died. So, they can't interfere because it could look like the royal family was choosing sides. I summarized, distastefully. Blade solemnly nodded his head. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I glanced at Gabriel, who seemed to be in a world of his own. His grey orbs stared down at the table, conflicted. I wanted to help him in some way, but I didn't know how to. I wanted to say we didn't need them, but that would be a fat lie. We did. We needed as much help as we could get. After dinner, I ventured to Gabriel's office where I knew my brothers and Gabriel would be. Knocking on the door, I entered and spotted them all sitting around Gabriel's large desk, where our map was stretched out. Jacob was pointing out a point on the map where Red Knight's borders were. We could plant bombs here. It will catch them off guard, Jacob suggested, sitting back in his chair. I stepped forwards, eyeing the map. It was in a part of the territory I wasn't familiar with. The area was large and seemed to be on a flat surface. There were a few trees to the right which led to Delta, Moon's pack. Do you think they'll be coming from here? Gesturing to where the place they were talking about. Jacob flickered his gaze up to me and nodded his head. Yeah, we think so. The place is open and so they'd think we wouldn't expect it. Young wolves run around there constantly though. Gabriel butted in. I floated my eyes to him, taking in his fatigued appearance. But they are most likely to come through here. If they do attack unexpectedly, then we might be able to eliminate some of them and frighten their worries, Jacob argued, firmly. He got a lot of his battle strategy from our father. Gabriel exhaled loudly. And what if one of my young wolves sneaks out and gets blown up? Jacob shook his head in disbelief. We obviously command them not to go in that area. Keep them busy if you must. I chewed on my bottom lip, my eyes bouncing between them. It was like watching a tennis match. We don't have any bombs, Jacob, Gabriel informed him, gravely. I can easily get some, Jacob retorted. He wasn't going to let this go. I had to admit that Jacob's idea was good. It could be extremely beneficial to us. You're not going to let this go, are you? Gabriel was already conceding. I wondered if it hurt his pride. Then again, he was a man who put his pack's safety above everything else. If this could help the loss of lives, then he'd be all for it. No, Jacob replied, instantly. Declan and I exchanged a look, suppressing a smile. Watching my mate and brother confront each other like that was quite funny. Do it then, Gabriel commanded. Sighing, Jacob nodded his head and left, no doubt on his way to get the bombs. Declan followed after him, giving me some privacy with Gabriel. Your brother is a menace. Collapsing into his chair, I hated how worn out he looked. I know, I responded, the corners of my lips quirking upwards. But his heart is in the right place. Gabriel gazed down at the map of his territory and Delta, moons. They had a smaller amount of land, but that didn't mean there were fewer people. You look like you need a kiss, I muttered, adopting a purring voice. Gabriel's grey eyes shot up to me like lightning. I smirked to myself. We didn't have a lot of time before training, but we had just enough time for me to cheer him up. I do. His resolve lightening. Oh, definitely. I breathed, stalking over to him like a predator. Our relationship had become very sexual. We both wanted each other desperately. I didn't know what was holding us back. Perhaps we had silently agreed to wait until the Delta Moon problem was solved. Either way, the most we had done was make out. I wanted him to mark me. I thought he wanted it to be a special moment. I placed my hand on his warm cheek, stroking his rough skin softly. He hadn't shaved in a few days. I quite liked his roguish look. It made him appear older. Gabriel peered up at me with eyes full of desire and want. My heart fluttered at his handsome face. I whispered with a demanding face. I didn't need to say anything. He wrapped a thick arm around my waist and pulled me onto his lap. My lips immediately locked with his. The kiss was full of passion and lust. We were both impatient and hungry for each other. I dreamed of being intimate with him, of his mark on my neck. I don't think I will ever get enough of you, he mumbled against my skin. I was surprised by his admission, but figured he had said it because his mind was distracted. If his lips were currently against my neck, he'd never have said it. As much as I enjoyed being physical with Gabriel, we barely ever spoke. I still didn't know simple things about him, like when his birthday was or what his favorite color was. They were trivial and probably meaningless to him, but to me, they meant a lot. I wanted to be the person who knew everything about him, including his favorite book or movie. Well, I should hope not. We're sort of stuck together now, I joked, referring to me being announced as the Luna. I was tied to the pack like he was. Gabriel stopped kissing and gazed up at me. A lazy smile stretched onto his pink lips. It was nice to see him so carefree in this short moment. I looked forward to the day I learned more about him. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. 36 Auspicious Mind. I must admit, seeing you and Alpha Gabriel getting cozy is nice. Sabrina commented as we walked away from the training grounds. Everybody was covered in sweat and was panting. Today, the session was more intense than usual. My light blonde hair was plastered to my forehead, and I was sure I smelt. Sabrina was in the same state as me. What do you mean? Glancing at her, her cheeks were flushed a bright pink color from the exertion we had just performed. Gomez, her mate, didn't seem at all fazed by it. Then again, he trained regularly. Well, you know, I said Alpha Gabriel would never take a mate, she stated, reminding me, and since that is all I ever heard about Alpha Gabriel, everyone always thought he'd be alone and unhappy. My heart aching for Gabriel. But he dated Eden. I had to force the words out of my mouth. They tasted like cement still. I had no ill feelings for Eden. She was alone and lost, but it still hurt to think about her with him. Yeah, but nothing changed with him. Being with her only caused him more stress. She explained, sighing. I knew she cared about Eden a lot. With you, it's different. I'd never seen him like that before. I still didn't know where Sabrina was going with this. Gabriel was still the same. Sabrina, you've lost me, I told her. She exhaled and rolled her eyes. Alpha Gabriel is happy. Sure, he's obviously stressed with everything happening, but with you, it's like he's complete. I don't think I've ever seen him smile before. I don't think I've ever seen him take an interest in anything other than pack work. That's all because of you. To say I was speechless would be an understatement. I honestly believed my presence didn't make much of a difference in his life. Clearly, I was wrong. Sabrina wasn't lying to me. She had no reason to. It was as if she could sense my doubts and reassured me. I began, uncertain about what to say. Elation coursed through me. My mood had been lifted because of her words, and I was excited to see Gabriel. A little birdie told me you are sleeping in his room now. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Smirking like a Cheshire cat, I snapped my head to her, wondering where she heard this. It was no secret by no means. I was simply curious. Have you been asking the staff about me? I quizzed, realizing the only way she would have heard this is if she was talking to the staff. Carrie came to my mind at first, but I quickly shook off the thought. Carrie wasn't the type of person to gossip. She didn't even talk to Sabrina very often. Perhaps it was Nellie, the young and nice girl who was always wandering around the pack house. She mostly worked in the kitchen, but she occasionally dabbled in housework. Whenever I saw her, I would stop what I was doing and ask her how she was. Sabrina suppressed a smile. Failing epic ally. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I shook my head in disbelief, smiling to myself. Sometimes I remembered my life before I had met her. I didn't really have female friends. I was always surrounded by men. Sabrina was like a sister I never had. You are so nosy, I muttered, laughing to myself. You should be glad you're my best friend. The words slipped out of my mouth quickly before I could comprehend what I was saying. Still, I had no regrets. Sabrina was the closest to me, minus my family and Gabriel. When I looked at her, I saw a lot of Michael in her. They were so similar in their ways. Did you just call me your best friend? Sabrina asked, shocked and happy. Wow, I feel like with Helma and Louise. Except we're not murderers and we're not running away from anyone. Oh, there was the movie reference. She seemed to have toned down her love for the human world and movies over the past few weeks. The large pack house came into view. There were a few guards stationed outside, a precaution Gabriel had recently implemented. Families no longer sat outside the house. All of the kids were at school or training. As for the mothers, they were helping any way they could. The atmosphere in Red Night just wasn't the same. Everyone was anxious. Loss of life was inevitable. They all prayed their loved ones would come back safe. When this is over, I'm going to organize a packed BBQ, Sabrina stated, confidently. That sounds like a wonderful idea, I replied, softly, assuming we won. A celebration would be exactly what people needed. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Handsome man approached us, his dark eyes trained on Sabrina. Gomez flickered his eyes to me in acknowledgement. I smiled back at him as he whisked his mate away from me, making my way inside the house. I ventured up the creaking stairs to my room. A shower and changing clothes were definitely needed before I had tea. My room was neat and tidy. The bed had been perfectly made. There were no signs of me living in the room. I only came in here for clothes nowadays. My real home was in Gabriel's large and comfortable room. Grabbing a clean pair of jeans and a shirt from my wardrobe, I switched on the shower and waited for it to warm up. When steam floated in the air, I knew it was ready. Stripping until I was naked as the day I was born, I hopped into the shower and released a sigh of contentment. I enjoyed my shower, letting the hot water pour away any signs of training. When I was done, I twisted my dripping hair into a messy bun and dried myself off. As I stared at my reflection in the mirror, I had to admit my body was gaining muscle. I was in amazing shape thanks to my consistent and demanding training. I liked how toned I was. It made me feel strong. After changing into my clothes, I diddied my bathroom and chucked my clothes into the hamper. My eyes flickered to the ticking clock in my room and noted tea would be in 30 minutes. Swiping my notebook, which contained all of the information I had gathered off the table, I slipped out of my room. That was when I noticed Carrie sneak out of Gabriel's room, her ebony hair tied in a ponytail. She closed the door quietly and darted her beady eyes around the corridor. When they landed on me, she froze. I narrowed my eyes at her suspiciously. What was she doing in Gabriel's room? Liberty, she greeted in surprise, smoothing her maid outfit. What are you doing? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I got straight to the point. She gulped subtly. Well, I was just cleaning Gabriel's room, she answered, stumbling over her words for a moment. Her nervous disposition transported me back to Eden's party when I found her crying on the stairs. We hadn't talked about that evening in a while. She seemed to have slipped back to her old, quiet self. Now though, it felt like I was staring at a different person. Where are your cleaning products? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Snappy lie. If you were cleaning, you'd have them. There was something seriously wrong with this whole situation. I sensed something bad. Carrie opened her mouth, racking her brain for an answer. All believable lie. Nobody was allowed to enter the Alpha's room without permission. It was disrespectful for one thing. Plus, everybody feared Gabriel's wrath. If Carrie was cleaning, then it wouldn't be a problem. But I knew she wasn't. Why was she sneaking into his room? Was she looking for something? No, if she was looking for something, she'd search Gabriel's office. That was where all of his plans were. I am sorry, Luna, she apologized, her voice trailing off at my title. Stepping closer to her, I examined her phone. She wasn't shaking, but she was definitely afraid. Staring into her brown orbs, I scanned them, hoping to find some sort of explanation. You need to answer me honestly now. See, I never got to finish my sentence. A blaring, shrieking alarm sounded throughout the entire pack house. It was loud enough to potentially bleed my ears. I had never heard it before, but I knew what it was immediately. Somebody had breached the perimeter. We were under attack. 37 the rogue. Carrie scurried away as soon as it sounded. I stared at her retreating form for a moment before falling into action mode. The first place I needed to go was Gabriel's office. With that thought in mind, I sprinted to his office, dodging worried pack members. They all paid no attention to me, going to their rightful places. Just as I rounded the corner, Gabriel swung the door to his office open and exited it. His grey orbs were filled with alarm and worry. An attack now was not only unexpected but concerning. We weren't ready. We hadn't set up the traps Jacob was talking about. Our warriors weren't prepared yet. He met my eyes. Our exchange spoke volumes. We both had the same thoughts in mind. I rushed over to him. How many? I asked him. Immediately. His eyes glazed over as he mind-linked his patrol warriors. There were always members of his pack patrolling the skirts of the border in case of intruders. They were usually there to stop and arrest rogues. But since the threat of Delta, Moon, Gabriel increased the number of warriors. When his eyes returned to the normal shade of stormy grey, he gave me his full attention. Only a handful, maybe a dozen. Gomez is already there. I need to head off. I'm coming too. I informed him, leaving no room for argument. This wasn't the attack. If it was, there would be more. I was certain. So if this wasn't the attack, what was it? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Gabriel looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew it would be a lost cause. I was coming with him no matter what. The Alpha and Luna sorted the problems of the pack together. We rushed through the pack house and to where the perimeter breach was. Gabriel was quick at running, but I managed to keep up with him. It was complete chaos. Panic infiltrated everyone's resolve. Nobody knew what to do. Gabriel barked some orders at a group of younger pack warriors, who all jumped at his baritone voice and reacted immediately, sending them all comforting looks. I followed after Gabriel. He was in alpha mode. Nothing, not even me, could break his reverie. We charged through the forest to where Gomez and a handful of warriors were. When we broke into the small clearing, I spot Gomez fighting two rogues swiftly. His large form dominated the two considerably smaller, thinner wolves. With one snap, he managed to break the brown wolf's neck. The other one, not even dazed by the death of their comrade, lunged at him. Gabriel turned to a smaller pack wolf who was struggling to fight a rogue. He instantly went to him and dated him. In my peripheral vision, I spotted a rogue sneaking up on Gabriel. Without a second thought, I teleported behind it and sent a blast of power at it. The rogue shrieked and flew through the air. It clumsily stood to its feet and glowered at me with its dark and cold eyes. The hatred it had for me was profound and unjust. Then again, I did just catapult it a few 100 meters. Now we're in the open. It didn't have the element of surprise on his hands. Its cunning eyes drifted to Gabriel, who was impressively fighting the biggest rogue. To tien him, I stalked towards him, gathering a bolt of energy. Like if I couldn't manipulate darkness or shadows, but we could use light. Realizing I was approaching it, the rogue snapped its head to me and growled in warning. A hint of terror flickered in his eyes. You shouldn't have come here, I commented. Emotional's a lie. Now afraid for its life. The rogue stumbled backward. My hands circled each other as light crackled. I could feel the power in every part of me. My body tingled. I relished it. It had been so long, too long, since I last used my power. Now I was going to show this wolf who I was and what I was capable of. It snarled at me and leaned forwards, preparing to lunge. The next few seconds happened in slow motion. As I was about to let my power loose in its direction, a wolf lunged at the rogue. The rogue tumbled to the ground with the wolf on top of it. The bolt of power hit a tree. Confused and angry, I dropped my hands to my sides and glanced around. Confused, I recognized the wolf that saved the rogue. It was Blade. Blade, why would you? I was interrupted by my mate. I asked him too. I had to do a double take. What? Gabriel sighed as he approached me. There was a small scratch on his cheek, but that would heal quickly. His t-shirt had splotches of blood on it. He hadn't even transformed into his wolf. He was capable of fighting in human form just as well. I want to interrogate him, Gabriel said, simply. Mashing my lips together, I backed off. It made sense. Gabriel wanted to know why they attacked. Did it relate to Delta, Moon, Gomez and Blade, who shifted into his human form and threw on a pair of shorts, grabbed onto the fighting wolf and dragged it to the dungeons. I followed behind them, ready to use my magic to render the rogue unconscious if it breaks free. The last time I saw the dungeons were on the day I had arrived. Breathing through my nose, I entered the building. It still smelt of disinfectant. We staggered up a flight of stairs, passing many guards. I even recognized one of the angry men from last time. He no longer looked ready to bite my head off. Perhaps it was because he knew I was the Luna. Gomez and Blade threw the wolf into a cell, whilst another guard who crept up behind us also chucked a pair of clothes at it. Gabriel stepped in front of the now locked cell with his hands behind his back. His grey eyes were closed off, hiding any true feelings. It was strange seeing him like that. I was beginning to get used to the open Gabriel. You have 5 minutes to shift and change into your clothes. If you do not, there will be severe punishment, Gabriel informed the rogue. Monotonously, the wolf glared icily at the alpha and huffed. Gabriel turned away from it and grabbed the crook of my elbow, guiding me away. I ignored the pleading wolves we passed. I entered the big white room first. My eyes wandered around, taking in the small kitchen and many tables. This must be some sort of staff room for the guards. I never really thought about the wolves who worked here. My mind drifted to the prisoners. What happened to them? How long did they stay here? When they served their punishment, were they set free? I would have to find out at some point, since I was the Luna. Taking a peek at Gabriel's face, I decided to question him after he interrogated the rogue. You don't have to be here now. Liberty, I can handle this, Gabriel murmured to me, bringing his alluring eyes to my face. I shook my head. I want to stay right here. I want to hear what the rogue has to say. Gabriel exhaled loudly. The interrogation might not be pretty. He warned me. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I knew there could be torture involved. By no means did I condone it. After hearing what my great-grandfather did to Diana and Torin, I never wanted anyone to go through that. But this rogue, along with many others, tried to kill my pack members. He tried to hurt my mate. I had to know the truth, and if that meant letting the wolf get hurt, then so be it. The queasy sensation in my stomach didn't dissipate as I left the room. Back to the cell, Blade and Gomez walked with us. We rounded the corner and saw the rogue standing in clothing with its back to us. Its hair was dark brown and messy. At our arrival, the rogue spun around to reveal a thin woman. Her face was covered in dirt, but underneath, you could see traces of pale, light brown skin. She had cold brown eyes that stared into the depths of our souls. Everything about her screamed anger. The girl looked no older than 20. Why had she been subjected to this? What had made her cruel at such a young age? Suddenly, torturing her felt sickening. She was young, barely an adult, and sad. Would she even survive it? Turning to Gabriel, I silently begged him to not hurt her. There were other ways, different methods. Gabriel blanked my look, staring dead on at the rogue. Gomez, unlock the door, Gabriel ordered his gunner, never straying away from the rogue. Gomez obediently obeyed. As soon as the see-through glass doors opened, a stench of death hit me. It came from the girl. Gabriel stepped into the room. I quickly did the same, flanking his right. The girl rolled her shoulders back, remaining confident. Rogue, I'm going to make this simple. I want to know your intentions for being here. Tell me who you are working for and I will kill you. Gabriel got straight to the point. The rogue growled lowly, curling her fingers into a fist. Never. She refused, tilting her square jaw up. Stubborn. Stupid. I thought with dismay. Gabriel didn't react outwardly, but I figured his anger was bubbling internally. These rogues attacked his pack and endangered his wolves. You have one more opportunity to tell me otherwise. I will have to look to other options. He threatened, his tone dark and deadly. This intimidated the rogue. I could tell, whilst her body didn't tremble. Her eyes avoided his. The girl narrowed her eyes and spat at my mate. Thankfully, the spit didn't hit his face, but still. The mess had been made. It was a clear sign of disrespect. Gabriel would never let her get away with it. Sighing inwardly, I blinked. In a flash, Gabriel had zoomed in front of her and grabbed a fistful of her grimy hair. She gasped as he forced her head back. Watching this made me uncomfortable. As an alpha, Gabriel had duties to protect the pack. If the pack's safety was threatened, then he had to do whatever he could to make sure he could protect it. I'm trying to be nice here. Rogue. Still, he managed to keep his composure controlled. He was a very methodical person. He never let anger blindly control him. Cooperate. Save yourself. Are these people you're protecting worth dying for? That made her freeze. She faltered, flickering her eyes to the ground in thought. After mulling over her options, her expression hardened again, causing my shoulders to slouch in defeat. She was not going to give up any information. I'm not telling you shit. Venomous lie. Gabriel let go of her hair dramatically and clenched his strong jaw. Very well. Blade, can you get me the pill? Perplexity became evident on my face as Gabriel asked this. What was the pill? Moving closer to Gomez, I whispered that very question to him. He inhaled, causing his broad body to become larger. It's a horrible hallucin, a drug which causes delirious thoughts. It speeds up your heart rate and makes you relive your worst memories. He told me, quietly, that's probably the most Gomez has ever spoken to me. I pondered over his words with worry. Was it fair to be this girl through that? When Blade returned, he was holding a purple pill. His face was devoid of any emotion, just like Gabriel's. Mine wasn't. I wasn't like them. I couldn't plaster a poker face on in moments like this. Blade handed the drug to Gabriel and shuffled to the side. Do you know what this pill is? He asked her. The girl swallowed and bit her bottom lip. She obviously did. I thought you did, he said when she didn't reply. I don't want to give you it, but if you're not going to give me answers, then I must force them out of you. Gabriel's eyes started but stopped when the rogue's icy eyes darted to me. Taking a deep breath, I continued. Don't do this. He glanced at me, his eyes telling me to stop talking. I guffawed in disbelief and moved beside him. I'm not going to let you do this. It's not right. She's too young, I argued, firmly. This wasn't the first time we had gone toe-to-toe, and it wouldn't be the last. Liberty, stop interfering, he ordered as if I would listen to him. I stood my ground. No. There are other ways to get answers. Gabriel's jaw ticked. This must be done. We must know why she attacked. Let me talk to her. I supplied a different solution. I just tried that, he retorted, placidly. It took a lot of effort for me not to roll my eyes. Yeah, you tried that. Not me. He was actually considering my words. To my utter relief, there was a chance I could get through to her without pain being involved. The girl snorted. Do you really think you'll get me to talk? Grinding my teeth together, I glanced at Gabriel. He sent me a small nod, giving me permission to approach her. Warily, she stared at me. What's your name? I began. Softly, she scrunched her nose up, finding me distasteful. I had to admit, this girl was making it difficult for me to stay calm. It was like she knew which buttons to push. However, I'd rather endure whatever she threw at me than watch her battle her own mind. I'm not going to tell you that, she countered, crossing her arms over her chest. The clothes she had been assigned were too big for her body. They drowned her small form. Why not? I'm not going to be able to do anything with this piece of information. I just want to know who I'm addressing, I replied, tucking strands of my light blonde hair behind my ear. She hesitated. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Gail, I repeated, letting her name roll off my tongue smoothly. Were you sent here by someone? Is that person threatening you? She sucked in a breath and pinched her lips together tightly. You know you will be safe here. Right. If you give us important information, we can help whoever is being threatened. I added, delicately. I don't trust you, she eventually claimed. I understand, but I want to help you. I could have met my mate and given you that drug, but I didn't. I reminded her. She eyed me up and down. So you're the new Luna? She stated. Flatly. I would have thought she'd guess who I was. Maybe it didn't occur to her. Yes, I am. I have the power to help you. I responded. You just need to tell me why you attacked us. What were you trying to do? She took a deep, shaky breath. Clearly, this really weighed on her conscience. Whoever she worked for, assuming she did work for someone, scared her. If she didn't work for anyone and it was just random, what was she trying to achieve? A week ago, our camp was infiltrated. We were bagged, gagged, and forced into drugs. When I woke up, we were told we would attack this pack, otherwise a few of us would be killed. To my agent extraordinaire, Moonlit, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They kept my mate and told me if I didn't attack your pack, she'd be killed. It was the same for most of us rogues. We are not rogues who are forced to leave our packs, we chose to. We never hurt anybody else. We are good people, she told us as tears formed in her eyes. Her tough exterior faded and showed who she really was behind the mask. I contemplated her words. Do you know who took you? Girl turned her head away, using her knotty hair to shield her from our penetrating looks. Yes, she mumbled. Slowly, she locked eyes with me. It was Delta, Moon. I gasped. Shocked. I should have seen it coming though. It made perfect sense. Delta, Moon sent the rogues as a warning. They wanted us to see what they were capable of. It was a bold and cocky move. Movement behind me caught my attention. Gabriel stepped next to me, facing Annika. He was probably just as anxious as me. Delta, Moon was proving more and more psychotic. Gabriel and I shared a knowing look and swiveled around. About to leave. There's one more thing. Gail whispered. We stopped and faced her. As we were being told our mission, I overheard the man in charge say to some blonde guy that Alpha Gabriel would disappear. My heart stopped. What else did they say? I urged, frantically. Besides me, Gabriel was as cool as a cucumber. They said he'd never see it coming. That's all. I swear. Everything was a blur from there. I was faintly aware I was being dragged away by someone. When we made it outside, I was still unaware of what was happening. All I knew was that I was out of the cell, and I was being pulled back to the pack house. My mind went mad. All I could hear was Gail's words. Alpha Gabriel would disappear. They were going to kill him. They said he'd never see it coming. They weren't planning on killing him, somewhat not in the fight. They were going to assassinate him. 38 falling from grace. By the time I made it to the pack house, thanks to Gabriel dragging me, I snapped out of my thought process. The word assassinate circled in my mind. The more I said it in my head, the more I believed it. Gail wasn't lying, there was no deceit in her eyes. She was telling the truth. She had heard Delta, Moon confirm they planned to kill Gabriel. To my agent extraordinaire, Moonlit, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Moonlit, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. An old woman called Gabriel's name, pushing her way through the crowd. She was one of the elders of the pack, a very respected woman. I hadn't had a conversation with her yet. Gabriel immediately stopped and gave her his full attention. I stared into her eyes and saw nothing but pure joy. Not concern nor fear. Yes, Mr. Jacobson, he asked as Gomez wandered off. Glade was the only one who stayed with us. They're born. Lani gave birth to the twins. She informed us, grinning happily. Gabriel's exterior softened. The birth of pups was nothing extravagant in the werewolf world. But the birth of twins definitely was. I assumed Mrs. Jacobson was the grandmother of the twins. She was probably worried her daughter, Lani, would never survive. Mothers rarely did survive. What must have been worse was the rogue attack. The stress must have caused Lani to go into labor. That is wonderful news, Gabriel said, genuinely pleased. I think we'll hold a celebration tonight in honor of the birth of the twins, Mrs. Jacobson smiled gratefully. It was nice to see such an older lady so bubbly and happy. She looked young. Oh, thank you. Alpha Gabriel. I wondered if Gabriel would have been like this before I came along. When I first met him, he was so private and unwilling to show any emotion now. Well, he's better than before. I'll have the cooks prepare a fine dinner. Have Lonnie and Dale come. Gabriel added, Mrs. Jacobson left and Gabriel sauntered to the kitchen where he ordered the cooks to prepare a celebratory meal. He then mined his entire pack and informed them about tonight. When he turned to me and gave him his full attention, I sought physical comfort. My arms wrapped around his waist. My body pressed against his. Why are we not talking about what Gail said? My voice was muffled because my face was buried in his neck. Hesitantly, he encircled his thick arms around my body. Gabriel sighed and planted a kiss on the top of my head. There is no need to. They probably talked about it in front of her for a reason. It's a scare tactic. Nothing more. He was treating this as a warning. He wasn't concerned for his safety. I fisted his shirt. "J'aimerais extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." You don't know that. This could be what you want. So please, swear on the moon goddess's name that you'll look into it. His warm and calisol hand found my jaw and tilted my head up. Our eyes interlocked and I felt my heart stutter. I couldn't lose him. I swore on my life I wouldn't let Delta, Moon, hurt him. If it's causing you this much stress, then I will do as you say. The hand on my back creating small circles. I smiled at him gratefully and pecked his rough cheek. Thank you. We parted ways. I went to have a relaxing bath in his tub. I refused to go into my suite after that incident. Grabbing a blue dress from my wardrobe, I ventured into Gabriel's room smoothly. This felt like my room now. I didn't even think about catching Carrie acting suspiciously earlier. My mind was solely focused on what Annika said. Whilst the bath filled up, I stared into Gabriel's large mirror. I had to admit, even though I was being strained a lot these days, I looked amazing. My light blonde hair had a golden edge to it, under the fluorescent lights. My J-dogs were wide and bright. My pale skin wasn't sickly, not that it ever looked sickly, but it looked better. Every aspect of me looked better. I wasn't sure how that was even possible. Was this because of the mate bond? I saw no other reason other than that. The mate bond could have several positive effects on wolves. I guessed it applied to Phi too. A smile formed on my face. My curly white teeth shone. All I could see was my happiness. Despite the stresses Eel has been causing me, I'm happy. I found my soulmate, and after a lot of effort, we were making things work. My bath was long and well overdue. I let my body soak until my skin started to wrinkle. After drying my body and applying lotion, I slipped the silky blue dress over my body. It was typically one I'd wear in the Phi realm. Its style was old, fashioned but beautiful nonetheless. The pack knew who I was and seemed to accept me. They'd probably accept my style too. I tied a blue ribbon around my waist loosely and one around my slender, swan-like neck. Then, I moved on to my long locks. Gabriel had asked Kerry for a hairy about a week ago when he realized how annoyed I got with my dripping wet hair. I'd always complain after showering that it took hours to dry. Why don't you just cut your hair then? It won't take as long to dry then, he'd said as I forced the comb through my unruly hair. I paused and stared back at him through the mirror. He was sitting on the king-sized bed, surrounded by paperwork. There were bags under his eyes. Glancing over my shoulder, I sent him an incredulous look. I'm not going to cut my hair. I've always had long hair. He threw his hands in the air, surrendering. Okay. The corners of my lips quirked upwards as a thought popped into my mind. Plus, you'd miss my long hair. I know you like running your fingers through it. He didn't even bother to deny it. I knew I was right. The next morning, when I snuck into his room to grab some deodorant, I noticed an expensive hairdryer on the bed. When we went to bed that night, I asked him about it. You were right. I would miss your long hair, was all he said. It took a while for me to dry my hair. Naturally, It curled into large ringlets. As I stared at my appearance, I noticed something was missing. If I was dressing up in my usual fire attire, I needed something in my hair. Normally, I'd stick flowers in my hair, but I wanted to symbolize who I was in this pack. Conjuring up an image in my head, I created a golden headband around my head. It fitted perfectly in my hair and didn't draw too much attention. Satisfied, I smirked at my reflection and checked the time. The meal would be starting in 15 minutes. I had spent too much time getting ready. Oh well. Gliding down the stairs, I greeted pack members, putting on a facade of happiness. Tonight, I'd forget about everything else and enjoy the night. We needed to have a break from training and dread. The arrival of twins would bring hope to many. It was a sign that anything was possible. We could beat Delta, Moon. The dining room had been converted. Instead of having separate group tables, they had all been joined together in long lines. They all circled around the room. It was a truly extravagant sight to see. The walls were decorated with banners and balloons. I guessed a group of wolves had volunteered to decorate the room. It was already starting to get busy. Many of the seats had been taken. I spotted Gabriel on the other side of the room, his table at the front. On either side of his table, in the corners, were doors leading to the kitchen and hallway. His grey orbs bore into my face and body. They gave nothing away. I longed to know what he thought of my outfit if he approved. I didn't need his approval, no woman could define myself, worth by a mere word, but I wanted him to think I looked nice. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He had never really said those things to me. I knew he was attracted to me. It was how the mate bond worked. Smiling brightly go-of-I-ly at him, I stalked towards his table with ease and confidence. A few turned their heads as I passed. My brothers were seated close to Gabriel's table and were talking idly to Sabrina. When I made it to Gabriel's table, he rose to his feet. In a gentlemanly manner, he pulled a red chair out and gestured for me to sit down. Cocking an eyebrow at this, I lowered myself into my seat and observed the room. As I suspected and hoped, the sour and worried mood had vanished. Everyone looks happy, I commented, my tone light and majestic. Gabriel shot me a pleasing look. Yeah, they are. The stress of the pack affected him a lot. If the pack was sad, then he was sad. When the food is rolled out, everyone's eyes light up. My mouth literally waters at the smell of it. As the food is placed on the tables, Gabriel stands to his feet with a glass of champagne. I didn't even notice he had alcohol. The room immediately went silent. All eyes went to Gabriel. Today has been a difficult day. Every one of you has gone through something traumatic today, and I commend you for being here with smiles on your faces. But we do have one thing to celebrate. Lonnie and Dale have brought not one but two new pack members. Twins. He paused as a chorus of cheers erupted in the room. The joyous atmosphere was beautiful to watch. Dale has told me he has named them Stella and Bryce. More cheers. As Gabriel wrapped up his speech, I relaxed. There was a large and bright chandelier above our heads. It twinkled brightly. Conversation started back up loudly. Gabriel sat back down and observed our pack with pure love. There was no denying how affectionate he was for his pack. Nobody could ever take that away from him. I'm worried, I heard myself blurting out. He focused on me, the grey in his eyes swirling with determination. He was convinced we stood a chance. Failure was never an option. We're prepared. Liberty. We stand a chance. He replied, calmly. It was in his nature to be so calm and stoic. If he appeared stressed or alarmed, it would negatively affect the rest of the pack. He had to put on a brave face. My attention was suddenly pulled elsewhere. A figure that had its hair covering its eyes walked out of the kitchen door to my right. They were carrying a glass of red liquid. My green knobs trailed after them, watching their every move. I couldn't see their face since their hair shielded them. I got chills in my body. All of a sudden, I'm transported to the dream I had in the bathtub. A powerful sense of deja vu hit me. The unknown person walked over to my table. Somehow, they remained undetected. I had to assume it was because everybody was concentrated on Gabriel and his speech. Maybe nobody suspected anything funny. Maybe it was just me and my nerves. What I tried to whisper to the person as they put the cup down. The person then scurried away quietly, but not before I could catch a glimpse at their face. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Shocked even though I really shouldn't have been, I gazed down at the drink and became transfixed by it. Drink it, a voice whispered, angelically. I stared at the cup in awe, losing all instincts to fight back. I wanted to drink it so badly. Their voice was sinister and dark but so alluring. Go on. You want to. Drink it. As in it was an out-body experience. I reached for the cup the anonymous person put down and lifted the cup to my lips. It felt cold but magical. Parting my lips, I let the cool liquid travel down my throat. It was only once I had drunk it. I came to my senses. The enchanting spell that had befallen me ended and I realized what I had done. Poison now ran through my veins. Libby, Sabrina's sweet voice coaxed me out of my train of thoughts. My face, which was a picture of fear, turned to her. Can you pass me the chick? She paused, noticing my expression. What is it? What's wrong? I didn't even know how to tell her what was wrong. How could I tell them I had somewhat willingly drunk poison? Oh God, what was Gabriel going to do? He didn't deserve this worry. Not now. I could feel the poison infecting my organs. I wasn't sure what kind it was, but I imagined it was one that would slowly destroy my body. Even if I could be killed by such things. If witches develop the poison, then it would be effective and harmful. This was the plan all along. I had been wrong. A fit of coughs racked through my body. I leaned forwards, coughing vigorously. The people around me stilled, watching the scene unfold. I squeezed my eyes shut tightly and placed a fist over my chest. The pain was unreal. Liberty, what's wrong? Gabriel's concerned asked, reaching for me. I couldn't focus on the tingles his touch created because I was in pure agony. My body quaked violently and blood poured out of my mouth. Oh my God, Sabrina gasped. Where's the pack doctor? Get him here now. Liberty, please tell me what's going on. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You're scaring me, Gabriel muttered, his voice shaking. Mustering up whatever energy I had left, I lifted my head up. I'm sure my face looked like a mess. I am sorry. I apologized and felt my consciousness slip away. This could be the last time I ever opened my eyes. This could be the last thing I see. I was just glad it was Gabriel's handsome face. And with that, I let myself be carried away into the abyss.